was post-TURBT bladder rupture, mainly extraperitoneal. Now, bladder perforation is one of the most significant complications following TURBT, and the actual incidence is very much variable. Now, in the literature, the significant incidence of perforation is 0.9 to 5%, but in a very interesting study by Daria, where the cystogram was done following TURBT, an incidence of extraperitoneal extravasation was reported as high as 58.3%. So, as we know, the perforation can be extra or intraperitoneal, and I think I have to speak only about the extraperitoneal, isn't it?
Yes, yes, yes.
I can't move my slides.
Lower left, there will be an arrow.
There is none.
There is. Just move your cursor at the lower left edge. Yeah, you got it.
Now it is coming anyway. So the cause of the bladder rupture can be deep resection, less visibility, cases of diverticular tumors, operator nerve stimulation. We have already, somebody has spoken about it. Over distension of the bladder, and a fragile bladder because of the history of previous endoscopic resections, especially in case of multiple recurrences. Now, the diagnosis at table is very easy. The first sign is inability to distend the bladder. There is inappropriate return of the irrigation fluid, abdominal distension. Sometimes one can palpate a bulge, which is a collection of the fluid in the suprapubic space. Patient having tachycardia, signs of urinary reabsorption in terms of hyperkalemia, uremia, acidosis, and intraperitoneal extravasation peritonitis. In extraperitoneal, one can visualize the fat, which is one of the surest sign of perforation. There can be dark space. Now, this is how typically an extraperitoneal rupture of the bladder is seen. You can see the fat, but in some cases, it can be a combined intra and extraperitoneal rupture. There, one has to be very careful because most of the cases of intraperitoneal, as my next friend will tell, will require some kind of urgent management. So that is how you see the intraperitoneal rupture of the bladder. Now, when one suspects a rupture, in the case of extraperitoneal rupture, in all the cases, cystography is not required. Cystography is mainly required if there is a combined intra and extraperitoneal rupture, or there is a large perforation which can be visualized and there is no return of fluid. Otherwise, in most of the cases, the intervention is not required. So, if there is a small perivesical fat area which is observed in resection without any obvious extravesical pocket or plane seeing, then one has to promptly finish the procedure and put a large bore catheter, which may in itself be sufficient to deal with this problem. In case there is distension of the blood of the abdomen or there is no return of the fluid, there a laparotomy may be needed. I can't move my slides again. Okay, going on. So as soon as one detects a perforation in the bladder, one has to achieve hemostasis and stop the surgery as soon as possible. In case the partial resection is done, the resection may not be performed at this stage. The main aim should be performing hemostasis, treat the hypotension with fluids, vasopressors, obtain hemocrit, give blood transfusion, stabilize your patient, and perform cystogram only if needed. In the post-operative period, the patient can have pain abdomen, decreased urine output, sepsis, tachycardia, signs of peritonitis in case of combined rupture, and bladder may not be palpable. In most of such cases, a cystography may be indicated, and it is very important to differentiate between again, yeah, between the intra and extraperitoneal rupture. Now, this is a classical CT scan of intraperitoneal rupture, in which you can see the contrast in between the bowel loops. Whereas in the extraperitoneal rupture, the classical sign is the molar tooth appearance. You will see the contrast around the bladder, and it is coming down along the lateral walls of the bladder like this. So there is a contrast which flows out of the ruptured bladder, occupying the preperitoneal space of cavum retzii. This is one of the classical signs, but in cases in which the rupture is small, one can see a small amount of extravasation lateral to the lateral wall of bladder or anterior to the bladder, confined anterior to the bladder. The management, I have already said, most of the cases is conservative, except in case of large perforation, where one needs to explore immediately. Leave an indwelling catheter for a longish period of time. Now, this is not mentioned in the literature anywhere. I searched for it, for how much time you have to leave the bladder. But the general tendency of all the surgeons is to leave the bladder for 5 to 7 days in these cases. Now, the next question which comes is there a change in the oncological outcome of these patients following extraperitoneal rupture of the bladder? Now, I have gone through a literature. Now, one of the paper by Alababy indicated that some malignant cells can penetrate through the denuded urothelium, and it can, because of the high intravesical pressure, there it may be a responsible factor for tumor recurrence and advancement of the stages. Though the cells do go out of the bladder, but most of literature suggests that there may not be any upgradation of the stage of the tumor. Even Johnson detected that tumor cells were detected in the peripheral vasculature following TURBT, but there was no definite evidence that these patients developed any metastatic disease. There is a very good paper by Hey Golan in which he studied, it was a retrospective study in which 4,144 patients were studied, and out of these 15 patients required bladder perforation repair. Only 2 of these patients with superficial tumor had metastatic progression and 1 patient had local progression. So, and in none of the patient with TA tumor there was any extravesical extension of the tumor. So there was no substantial evidence that there was any extravesical tumor seeding in these patients. Now, out of 36 patients which were studied by Daria, 21 patients had extraperitoneal contrast extravasation, and none of these patients had any extravesical tumor seeding as per the follow-up up to around 1.5 years plus. The number of factors which may be involved in the tumor seeding may be one, a significant factor may be patient who require an open surgical repair. Now, in the literature, 2 patients out of 15 which were reported, they had open surgical repair, and these were the 2 patients who have had a metastatic disease. An intraperitoneal location of the bladder defect can also predispose to the tumor metastasis, and a large tumor more than 3 centimeters may predispose to the metastasis following perforation of the bladder. But friends, the literature on this was variable. There is still no definite evidence that actually a rupture of the bladder during TURBT actually predisposes the patient to the advancement of a disease or development of metastasis. To summarize, in the end, one can reduce the incidence of perforation by doing a careful resection. One has to give attention to the technical detail, avoid over distension of the bladder, use anesthetic paralysis for resection of the tumor on the lateral wall. This has been discussed in detail. The use of bipolar resection is doubtful, and large bulky tumors can be resected in a stage-wise manner rather than trying to overachieve in these patients. And stop wherever you have a doubt of perforation. You can always go back and do the further resection. I think, thank you. I'll finish there.
Thank you. Thank you, PP. While you unshare, one quick question for you, and I'll ask Surya Prakash to start sharing his screen. He shall be talking of the intraperitoneal rupture. PP Singh, as you said that most of these patients with extraperitoneal rupture would be managed conservatively.
Yeah.
And the patient would have a lower abdominal distension, some signs of peritoneal irritation. How long would you continue with this line of conservative, and when would you feel that this patient is not responding to conservative?
See, my protocol is to get an ultrasound done after 24 hours. If the irrigation is coming okay, even if there's small amount of hematuria, I continue with the irrigation and get an ultrasound done. And if the collection around the bladder is not significant, the local signs are not there, patient vital are stable, there is no indication of exploration of these patients.
No, I'm saying, sorry. What I was trying to ask you, the patient is not very comfortable still. I mean, okay, there is some collection on ultrasound, urine is pink, but the patient is still not comfortable. So how long would you wait for him to get comfortable?
No, unless the patient is unstable and the irrigation is not going on, I can easily sit over for it on it for 4 to 5 days. To my
Okay.
mind, the indication or exploration of these patients is progressive increase in the collection of
Yeah,
fluid,
yes, that's
irrigation
very
fluid
important.
not coming back, patient getting lot of discomfort. You
I
mentioned about
guess,
discomfort, but
yeah, progressive worsening of situation would
yeah,
be a much more critical point
yeah,
there.
rather than jumping into the explosion immediately in these patients.
Correct.
Do you think there is no role of putting a retropubic or perivesical drain as we used to do before in the past?
Or
I have
even an
never required,
aspiration. Or
yeah,
even an aspiration.
even an aspiration. Yeah, one can opt for these things, but in a patient in which there is large amount of collection, because most of these collection will reabsorb over a period of time. And with good video, with good techniques, generally perforation is detected in time by an expert surgeon, and one should stop there rather than dissecting it further.
Thank you, PP. Thank you.
If there's large
Oh,
collection, I agree, one might
yeah.
require.